One. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I want to thank you. This is Grant Cameron. I want to thank you for taking time from your valuable day and your time to join me today. I'm joined again today by my new sort of co-host, Sinead Wellahan, who came and rescued me when I needed it, and will be forever grateful. I have her to do interviews, and the way today's interview has been set up is I asked Sinead, who would you like to interview? If we're going to do interviews, you're coming in on some of the ones that I want to interview. And so she's got two interviews. We're going to do the first one right now. We're going to do one a little bit later. And so I'm going to hand it off to Sinead to introduce the guest that we have today. And once again, Sinead, I really am honored that you're willing to help me and to be a part of my experience. So thank you, and tell us who we're going to be talking to today and why it's so important.
I will do, and just first and foremost, the feeling is absolutely mutual. You know that I'm really enjoying doing this with you as well, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you also. And I want to thank Kosta Makreas for being here with us today, because he is an absolutely lovely person, and he's also doing some really incredible work. He's spending his retirement working very, very hard, 7 days a week, unbelievable hours, millions of emails, and all kinds of wonderful initiatives with the purpose of essentially raising consciousness, spreading love, and connecting people in as much of a global community as possible, people who are experiencers and people who are curious about the grander nature of things, the bigger nature of things, you know, understanding that this reality that we think we live in is not the only one, and that there are many, many layers to this current reality too. And that the way to access that is by validating each other's experiences and listening to each other, and really raising our vibration, raising our consciousness, and opening our hearts. And the most powerful way to do that is together. So on that note, I want to thank Kosta so much for being here. And Kosta, I'm not going to go into a long introduction about who you are, because I think we're going to make our way through that as we talk.
Okay.
I want to give you the opportunity to just introduce yourself, you know, in any way that you would like to. We've known each other for a series of months now, and I'm just so impressed with the incredible hard work you're doing, and how much value and power that it has, and I want to see that expand. So I think the first thing I would say is, how would you like to introduce yourself, and also what has brought you to this world? What has brought you to this work? Why are you here doing what you're doing?
Boy, have you got a couple days, but we'll keep that short. Thank you very much, both of you, for the opportunity to connect with you and to connect with your audience. Basically, I try to keep myself to the side. I call myself the facilitator of the ETLetsTalk community. I founded it in 2012, and we have 25,000 people in more than 100 countries who are making daily, weekly, and monthly benevolent contact with our star friends. And we'll be talking more about that later, what that looks like in detail, but that's really the overview. If I were to describe who I am and what I do right now, I am the founder, like I said, and facilitator, head cheerleader of the ETLetsTalk community, keeping in mind that I have a lot of allies, volunteers helping out with all of this. So it's not a one-man show by any means. In actuality, it's everybody's show, which is really important, and I'll be talking more about that as we get going too. I also just briefly want to mention that I'm the founder of the People's Disclosure Movement, which I founded in 2010, and I'll be talking again more about that, as well as the Global CE5 Initiative, and lately the People's Love Alliance. So I've got a lot to talk about, and the truth is that all of these do tie together, and it's my pleasure to try to make sense of them and then try to get people out there excited about what these different movements are doing. And basically that's it.
Yes, and I just want to actually respond to you saying that it's everybody's show. That's the one thing that I appreciate so much about you, is that you are not hung up on governmental disclosure. You are more about the disclosure of the average person on the ground and the sharing of our experiences and growing the power that we have individually and collectively as so-called average Joes who are not people in positions of power. We are not in government. We don't have bajillions of dollars at our disposal. But it doesn't matter. We still have incredible power to be able to come together and make things happen. And you are hugely helping with that. And it's something that I appreciate so much. It's the main reason why I wanted to ask you to be here today. So maybe touching on that, you can talk about, well, actually, let's go back to what brought you to this movement. How did you end up doing this work?
Well, my short biography is, it's really pretty unremarkable. I grew up in the American Midwest in Indiana in the 60s. I was born in 1953. So my formative youth was the very turbulent, groundbreaking 60s in the United States and in other parts of the world too. As part of that, I was interested in space in many ways. I had interest in astronomy with the telescope. I was all over the NASA thing, the moonshots and all that was exciting the world at the time. I was also an avid reader of science fiction. And so my sight was always like kind of on the stars, on the bigger horizons of the cosmos. And so when I was about 10 or thereabouts, I found my first book on UFOs. Might have been a George Adamski book. And there was a contact movement, as Grant knows the history of this, from the 40s and into the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, the early contactee movement that produced a lot of people who step up and spoke out and wrote books. Well, I found one of those books, and it had a classic picture of a flying saucer on the cover, which immediately grabbed my attention, and I could not put it down. This was back in the day before Photoshop, and so as I looked at all the black and white photographs in there that people had taken, I understood that unless they were really sophisticated, they were really not faking any of this. And so this captured my imagination. And I was never the same after that because I felt like, I guess my home was out there, or that we should be going out there, and that we have a connection with a larger world than just the life that we're living. I led a pretty conventional life, went to university, computer science and mathematics, came out to California, got married, had kids, got divorced. The kinds of things that, people do in a very ordinary way until 2006, when I discovered the Disclosure Project and learned all about the world of UFOs as it had progressed, and how people were stepping out from whistleblowers, is what we call them now, and talking about this. And so that put me on this course right now in reigniting my interest in UFOs or UAPs or whatever the acronym is this week. But at that point, I realized that I wanted to make contact, and there were ways to learn how to do contact with the beings that were pilots of these. And I had my first experience doing that at Mount Shasta in 2006 in the company of 9 other people for about half an hour, when a small starcraft materialized in front of all of us, almost at arm's length. And we communicated with the beings inside, who told us they were scientists and they were here to study the human energy system. And then it just kind of dematerialized after that. There's more that happened during that, but it was a very up close and personal experience. And that's how I came to be doing this. I realized then and there that after this craft dematerialized, that not only had the laws of physics as I knew them just been violated, because that should not have been able to do all that, but that I wanted more of this. And so I started organizing people to learn how to make their own contact. And in a larger sense, that's where I am today, still doing that with a wider audience, a wider community, and empowering everyday people, because I walked away from that experience realizing I'm nobody special, really. Well, my mother maybe thinks I am, but and my wife, thank you. But if I was able to have that kind of experience, just meditating with a group of other ordinary people, why couldn't everybody in the world? So I saw the incredible importance of us having to make connection with our cosmic families that are reaching back to us or out to us right now. And so that fired me up. And like I said, if I could do it, anybody could. So here I am.
And of course, you don't need the government to tell you, oh, what you saw was real and your experience was real. You were there. You experienced it in person yourself. Multiple people are around you as co-witnesses, and no governmental disclosure is necessary for somebody to have an experience as powerful as that. And I really do see you carrying on that individual experience into such things as doing CE5 retreats. You were one of the first people, if not the first, to start doing CE5 retreats. For people to come together and put the effort towards collective consciousness as a magnet, with the goal of attracting communication with our star friends and attracting incredible experiences so that we can validate this feeling that really we all have on some level or another, that things are not quite as they may seem. And so that's where you and I met. Well, we had communicated prior to that, but then I came to a CE5 with you and absolutely loved it. And I think a testament to the powerful way that you lead it is that everyone who was in our group, in our CE5, has maintained consistent contact in all these months since. We write to each other all the time. We share experiences, and it really is so incredibly validating, and that is enormously powerful. So I know many, many people are grateful to you for doing that. And I'm curious actually how you started with the CE5 aspect of this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it happened through the Disclosure Project. So I wasn't the first person that did CE5, but I did learn it and then found out that many other people around the world were actually modifying the protocols, because everybody seems to want to customize. But a lot of people around the world were doing this. So I just started reaching out to those people and forming a network in the community, the ETLetsTalk community, where it's a safe place for people who've had these experiences to come and share together, where they won't be called crazy or worse. Because many of us in our lives have not been able to tell these stories. So that's what the community is all about. And you're so very right, Sinead, that all of us doing this together is really what is not the government's disclosure. This is what I call the people's disclosure, which I founded in 2010. I kind of gave it that label because I realized that we take our power back from the government and from all the authorities by saying, I don't care whether you tell me what I saw was real. I know what I know. I was there. My friends were there. And if this happened to me, I can give you a list of 1,000 people now, 10,000 people who've had similar experiences to me, who know what they know. That's the people's disclosure. And you take back that power and you put it back among us. And no, like you said, we may not have a lot of resources, a lot of money to make announcements and buy media time and all that. But the truth is that this disclosure has spread to, if not tens of thousands, probably millions of people whose minds are now open to the concept that we are being visited by intelligent civilizations, and that they are benevolent, and they want to communicate and interact with us. What could be more exciting than that right now at this point in human history than to be able to have the power? And this is what's cool. We don't need all those antennas, millions of dollars of funding. I like to say, spend about $25 in whatever currency and get a lawn chair, get a few friends together, go into your backyard, in your living room, on the beach, in a forest, on a mountain, wherever. You can make this contact just using your mind, your heart, your goodwill, your love, and that's all it takes. So that's really what the People's Disclosure Movement's about, is that we all have done the disclosure, and we've gone from being believers to having our own experiences, and we've become knowers instead. And that is so empowering. And I think that that's what's game changing, because we're not kneeling before governments now waiting for that press conference that's going to come from whatever premier, prime minister, president. Uh, Honestly, we don't need that. And I'm not putting down the efforts of people who have gone that route, because I think that this is a parallel process. There's been an opening up in official circles by those who have bravely stepped forward into that area. It's just that when I realized there's so much time and energy being expended by people just waiting for disclosure and talking about it and looking for hints where it might be happening, soft, hard disclosure, whatever. Why don't we use that same time and energy and do it ourselves? Once you've seen your own spacecraft or been buzzed by something or know someone who has had a telepathic experience, whatever, up close experience, once that has happened, you've disclosed. You don't need to know anymore, they do exist, and you can do it again and again and again. And then you find a community like the ETLetsTalk community where thousands of other people are doing the same. So either we're all crazy, all mass hallucinating, or we're all onto something and seeing little pieces of a larger jigsaw puzzle. And that's why it's important that we compare notes. I don't claim to know all the answers about all the civilizations who are here, all of their motives. I know some things from my experience and from the experience I've gathered from other people. But what I'm about is teaching people how to do this and to believe what they get, not to believe me or some other authority, but to check in with their higher self, or however they term that, with their own knowledge and see what really rings true for them. And if they happen to agree with what I say and with others in the community, well, then that's great. We can all meet, we can share, and we can fill in each other's knowledge. So community is really what it's about, and that's how the People's Disclosure has really grown. I can't hear you.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
It really has grown, and I really could not agree more. And I love that you use the example of an antenna, because the way you're describing the power that each individual person has, we can become our own. We can make ourselves an antenna. We can become ourselves an antenna and create that contact. So I just like that you use that example. And just for the sake of clarification as well, for the people who are going to be listening and watching, what is the difference between the People's Disclosure Movement, which you started in 2006, and ETLetsTalk, which you started in 2010? What is the difference between those two communities?
There's really no difference. They're different labels for the same thing, basically. I mean, ETLetsTalk.com is a website. People can come and join as free members and be part of the ETLetsTalk community. Well, let me say this, now that I think about it. The People's Disclosure Movement really, for me, is the largest umbrella. It includes not only ETLetsTalk, so in that way they are the same, but there are other communities. I'm not the only game out there, and that's the way I like it, because I don't want to be the sole source for teaching this. Of course, there are other people that have come before and are doing the work and will come after ETLetsTalk, and they're out there right now, and we're all working in parallel. Some of us are partnering. So the People's Disclosure Movement is the larger umbrella that has a lot of these networks within networks and communities around the planet, some known to each other, some not unknown, but we're all making the contact. And when we find each other, we share. So that movement really is the largest, the most 20,000 foot level of the fact that humanity is waking up to our cosmic place in the universe and using nothing but ourselves and our friends and a little bit of time to discover the most amazing thing, that we're not alone, that we actually have help at this particular time in our history to save the planet. And that's another topic that's close to my heart, and that's part of my mission. Did that answer the question?
Yes, very much so. I think, I'm glad that you mentioned that ETLetsTalk is .com, is an online community, because, as you've been mentioning, so many people who have these experiences feel very alone, and they might not feel able to tell anyone what they're going through. I myself have been there. You perhaps have been there. Grant maybe was there, although he's much more exuberant as a personality than we are, and perhaps had no qualms about verbalizing his experience right away. But you know, there are a lot of people out there who don't feel able to express it, and so if they want to segue into it gradually, you know, into so-called going public, then it's good to know that there's a place like Let's Talk, where it's an online community. They don't have to be out, you know, they don't have to reveal their identity right away if they don't want to. But they can go and meet other like-minded people and get some validation and build some confidence that their experience is real and they're not crazy. And Grant, I think there's something you wanted to pipe in or ask as well at this point.
Yeah, there's just one question as you're talking. It comes down to the mission, what's really going on. I'm always sort of obsessed with the question of nuts and bolts versus spirituality. What would be your concept of God, ETs? How do you figure it? What's the overall, I guess, framework that you think this is happening? And I'm not sure how to phrase the question, but the way I sort of started to look at it now is it may not be what we sort of thought it was. So what's your framework in terms of what's really going on? Because you talk about a mission. I always talk about a mission. Why are they here? How does it fit in with God? Is there a connection with God, or is this just technology, just aliens who happen to find us? What's your take on all that?
That's an excellent question, and I think a very pertinent one at this time, and one of a little bit of controversy, depending, you know, as you start discussing. I believe there's one mind, one consciousness, one source in the universe, and that we are all fragments of that. So for me, this is really, in the largest sense of the word, it's a spiritual mission. And spiritual meaning that I really believe love is the overriding or is the unifying force of everything. And without getting into all the details of my own cosmology, let me just state that yeah, love is all there is. We're all part of that. And even those of us who are not behaving well in time and space towards each other, and that may include other civilizations too, we all will get there someday, I believe, to back to the source of where we came from. So that is a really huge context, and that life is everywhere. You know, we used to think that we're just alone, but I think life is everywhere in a lot of layers, call them dimensions, call them other planets. And it's all tied together. It's all sourced in consciousness, in your consciousness and mine, which is really, we are all one. So I think, does that help? I mean, that gives.
Yeah, that basically we're on the same page. I mean, that's because that is, you know, it's a controversial subject. That and the evil aliens is a controversial subject where we're in a materialistic paradigm where people want to go back to, you know, why don't they just drop out the technology and get lost? And we go into that road where I think you and I and Sinead and maybe others are saying, no, that's probably not what's going on. This is not Santa Claus. This is something else going on here.
And the thing is, I agree. And as a planet, you don't have to look very far and realize we're in a very challenging time. We could really disappear as a species very quickly, or we could make an incredible breakthrough into what I call a golden age. I believe that the benevolent civilizations that are visiting us here from many different places that I've contacted and many people in my community have contacted and conversed with in different ways, I believe they're here because they realize, many of them, and there may be some that are neutral, but there are many benevolent ones that realize what a critical part where we are right now on Earth, how critical that is. I think they want to help. Many of them may have been through the stages of growing and learning and not destroying themselves that we're at right now, and the opportunity that we have to break through and do something wonderful. And they've told us they love us, the ones we've contacted, in great numbers, and they want to help. In 2019, they actually gave us a message that the non-interference policy that they had been observing, kind of, if you're a Star Trek fan of any genre, of any year, then you've heard of the Prime Directive. But what I learned, and nobody has to believe this, but this is the information I was given, and I'm putting it out there. And like I said before, everybody should test what I say against, you know, their BS meter, their higher self. And if it rings truly, then come join. But yeah, the message was that the non-interference policy has been done away with. Things are so critical, and so many of us have stepped forward and asked for help, which is what we've been doing month after month in the global CE5 community, where we meet every month, and we've been doing that for 10 years. We've been uniting with each other, and we've been asking to make the connection as a global community, as an advanced humanity that is reaching out. So we're told that our efforts paid off. A tipping point has been reached where we put enough energy out there saying, please come help us and work with us as partners. They are now doing that. They've told us that they can, and interfere is kind of like a really bad word because it makes it sound like someone's reaching in and doing something that you don't want done. It's not that. It's cooperation now. They can fully cooperate as long as we ask for the assistance, because there is still a human free will thing here. They're just not going to walk in and solve this or that for us. I think they understand that we as humans need to solve our problems ourselves. We got to work this out with each other using love. I know that's a big task. It doesn't look like it's easy to do, and it's not. But we either do that or we die as a species. So we have that help, though, from these other civilizations. They would like to mentor us, and yes, they may have technologies that will be appropriately revealed to us in time when it's safe for that to happen. So they have said that we should think of them as not as gods. They don't want that, but as family, as elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. They're family. And they said that if we just reach out to them in that way, again, they can't do our growing for us. But in the same way, if you have a problem and you hit a wall and you're stuck, you pick up your phone or something, and you call a relative, a friend, someone older, a mentor that you trust, and you ask for advice, you ask for some guidance, for some mentoring. I believe they are in that role with us and are very joyful to do that. And now, having said that, they're also helping with chemtrails and radiation and other things that are really problems that we've made so bad that we can't totally solve them. So what I'm saying is there's a partnership here that has happened, and that non-interference policy, having been removed, makes a full partnership now possible. So moving forward, our community, every month during our global C5 initiatives, or every day, anytime anybody wants to join this group field where we all meet, to request more help for us here so that we can make the breakthrough and create an incredible society that we're capable of doing. It's there, and it's waiting for us right now. It happened in 2019, the tipping point happened. So it's up to us now. What are we going to do to move forward with it? Well, let's ask for help, and because we're not alone in the universe, and we're not alone with each other. We've all got to work together.
Again, I could absolutely not agree more. And, I just want to emphasize what you said about it being a partnership. Not only do I agree with that in theory, I also have experienced that personally. I know that my own contact could not be occurring were it not for the fact that I have to do my part. And if I don't do my part, the contact becomes less, right? So I really, Grant was sort of putting it in terms of, he and I have talked about this a lot too, in terms of the idea that in a previous life, because all of us who are in this field, or most of us, if not all of us, who are in this field, believe in the concept of reincarnation, that this is not just one life, this is an ongoing experience of existence, and the body is simply a temporary container that our energy is currently living in. That in a previous life, we would have made a contract, an agreement, to be here now doing what we're doing, and that gives us ownership. That gives us the opportunity for personal accountability, for personal responsibility, and that's not a weight on our shoulders. That's a power, right? And to own that, a powerful thing. And I think the automatic association with the word responsibility is, oh God, chores or homework or this sort of weighty feel, but it's actually, to me anyway, a powerful, transformative concept to really own our part in being here in life and to understand that, you know, if we want more of anything, if we want more abundance, we want more happiness, even just on this one plane, or if we want to experience more contact, that it is a partnership. And so I greatly appreciate that about the People's Disclosure Movement, you know, the philosophy behind it, the heart behind it. ETLetsTalk.com also has that philosophy. And you were expressing earlier that the People's Disclosure Movement is an umbrella under which there are these other movements that you have spearheaded and that you're receiving support in doing. So a couple of the other ones that we haven't yet gotten to are the People's Love Alliance, and then also Good News Every Day, which I absolutely love so much because of what you've been talking about just recently. You know, Grant and I talk about this too, that there's just an unbelievable amount of awful news coming to us through the media, which is a manipulation tool. It is there to breed fear, which is a way of controlling us and making us more active consumers and all this stuff that works for the higher ups, but not necessarily for us. And the Good News Project is just wonderful. You know, it really has changed the way that I feel. And although I do feel some responsibility to know what's going on in the world at large, I really have for quite a while now believed in rationing what I'm taking in, because I'm a sensitive person and I feel it, right? And so having that practice, but also having a place like the Good News Every Day to go to and to read about all the wonderful things that are also happening in the world and the wonderful people who are doing incredible things, it's just so incredibly beneficial. So if you could talk a bit about the People's Love Alliance and Good News Every Day, I think that would be something really valuable for the audience to hear as well.
Yeah, I see the People's Love Alliance being integrated with the People's Disclosure Movement. The People's Disclosure Movement is focused, for lack of a better word, outward in connecting with our cosmic friends. And there's a huge amount of support on Earth, 1.3 billion people that I've calculated, who are open to communicating with civilizations and who believe that they are here, 1.3 billion. So that's the People's Disclosure Movement. But at the same time, there's kind of the Earth-based People's Love Alliance, which is also hundreds of millions of people in different movements that you've never heard of and some that you have. And if you go searching on the internet, you will find many of these groups, like avaz.org, like the cultural creatives that have been written about, and others who, in their millions, really comprise a forward, loving, creative force on Earth that doesn't get any publicity because, as you mentioned, Sinead, the negative news seems to predominate for all the various reasons. So when I discovered that the People's Love Alliance really has so many millions of people working to make a better world, many of whom don't know about each other, and many of whom need to be inspired, because the news every day is depressing if you let it get to you, if you don't meter it. So the Good News Every Day, which people can reach at ETLetsTalk.com/Good News Every Day, just spelled as it sounds without any spaces. That will steer you to websites where you can find examples, real world life examples today of people doing incredible, life-affirming things, acts of kindness towards each other, towards the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, to saving the planet. And you would never you would never know about these. And if you meter the bad news, so that, I mean, you do have to stay aware of what's going on in the world, but if you want to predict the future, the best way to predict it is to create it. And the best way to create it is to inform yourself by looking at Good News Every Day. I tell you what, and you were part of this experiment, when we did a Day of Good News last December 2019 as an experiment, we just decided for 24 hours to mobilize a lot of us on social media and do nothing but put out posts on social media, good posts everywhere. I discovered that in the days after that one-day experiment, my news feed started filling up with people I had not been friends with. There was just coming good news stories of all kinds from all over around the world of people doing positive things. And that's when I realized we need to do this every day. And that's what Good News Every Day now is doing, giving examples of the People's Love Alliance and how it's really working. You know, just don't have to believe in this abstract thing like, oh yeah, people are holding hands and things are getting better. No, we want evidence. So Good News Every Day is evidence. And when I start my morning and I read just about 2 or 3 of the posts that come in fresh that morning, I already have a head start on feeling lifted and better, no matter what's before me that day. And so I'm dosing myself every day now with good news. I could think of worse things to be addicted to. And it keeps coming. And what I have for me, I want for other people. And that's why I'm putting it out there that what you and I have done with Good News Every Day, and it's also on Facebook. It's a group, Good News Every Day. By posting good news and then by disseminating the good news other places besides Facebook, and also by reading other people's posts, it becomes a whole new reality where, no, you're not being naive and pretending everything is total sunshine and love, which it actually is at a certain, in another level. But we're actually building the world that we want by nurturing ourselves, by feeding, by drinking good news every day. So it's not a naive, just do-gooder thing. It is a do-gooder thing, actually, but it's a bigger power with more people involved, and we just need to promote it and let each other know that we exist and that we exist to create a better world.
Yes, and I just really love the interconnectedness of everything you're talking about, because, you know, really being receptive to and participating in and creating the output of good news is like a meditation practice, isn't it? Because it's a way of raising our vibration, right? We're raising a vibration. What you just said about how you wake up in the morning and you open your Facebook. I'm on the Good News Every Day Facebook page myself. I love it. It's the first thing I look at every day. And so I relate to what you just said. You know, you get to see a wonderful story about something that's actually happening in the world that is wonderful, that is positive. And I instantly feel a lift. You know, I instantly feel my vibration go up a notch, even if I'm already feeling good. It still brings my vibration up. And that is going to coincide with the raising of my consciousness, the opening of my heart, the ability to connect with other people, you know, the openness and receptivity to what's happening around me vibrationally, energetically, consciously, on whatever level. And I really appreciate that, you know, you have this umbrella of the People's Disclosure Movement, but within that, you have these different separate, the People's Love Alliance, the ETLetsTalk community, the Good News Every Day, the C5s that you're doing. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. And that it's all interconnected because it's all about the same thing. And you're creating this network of people who are all participating actively in spreading vibration, good news, positive connection with each other, positive communication, support, validity, right? And it is a really, really powerful experience. It kind of reminds me of, I wish I could remember specifically who, maybe Grant can jump in if he remembers, but there was a meditation experiment that was done around a lake. I want to say Japan, I'm not sure if that's right, but it was done around a lake where a whole bunch of people came together, sat around this lake and meditated on the lake, and it changed the molecular structure of the lake. And it was scientifically done. I mean, scientists were there, they took samples of the lake water before and after. And that was simply with vibration. So, you know, vibration is not something we can tangibly see, but it is just as real as anything else. And it has a powerful effect. And the good news reminds me of the fact that, you know, in everything there is duality. You cannot have good without bad, so-called, if you want to be, you know, binary about it. You can't have sun without moon. You can't have light without dark. You can't have up without down. You know, these things that coexist. And people believe, if they subject themselves only to the mainstream news, that everything right now is crap. And that's simply not true. There is a duality. There is a flip side to that, which is all the incredible, wonderful things that are happening and the good people that are doing them, and that includes yourself. And so on that note, if we talk about coming together to do ET Contact C5 retreats, can you tell us a little bit more about that? About, you know, what are they, where are they, and when are they?
Sure. It's a pleasure to have an electronic community because, for starters, which the internet has made possible, where you can meet thousands of people, and I have over the years, but particularly a pleasure for the ability to meet them face to face. And that's why ETLetsTalk has, at this point, 3 retreats every year where for 6 days and nights, we come together in a small group at 3 different locations right now in the United States. And we practice increasing our psychic abilities, raising our vibration as part of doing the contact with our star friends. And this happens, like I said, for 6 days, and it's a retreat. We have the locations are in Mount Shasta, California, coming this June, for example, June 14 to 19.
Where I will be with you in June. I can't wait for
That's
it.
right. Yeah, yeah. And in Bloomington, Indiana, which is September 13th to September 18th, followed by Joshua Tree, California, in Southern California, there in the beautiful desert, in October, from the 11th to the 16th. And people can come to etletstalk.com/retreats to get more information about those. But what's really cool is that you get to meet face to face with other people who've taken a week out of their busy lives, some of them coming from overseas, other parts of the country, to be in this very special spot for this very special kind of thing. So they self-select in that way. They're already kind of interesting people, because who else would do that, to come all that distance, time and energy, money, to sit under the stars and make contact. And I have to say, we always have ground and sky contact. It's no 2 retreats have ever been the same. People form friendships there because it's a very bonding thing. Once 10 of you or 15 or 20 of you have jumped out of your seats to watch a flashing, zigzagging light that's sending telepathic messages to some people and responding to our flashing of our lights and showing signs of real intelligent behavior. Once a whole group of you have jumped up and watched that and participated in that for a minute or more sometimes, you're never the same. As you were saying earlier, that's what bonds some groups together, and they stay in touch afterwards. So the retreats are a great human experience for us in this common goal, but they're a great cosmic experience because we do receive awareness that we are acknowledged. You know, these intelligent beings are using all these different methods to say, we see you, and here's how we're responding. Maybe the day has not come when they can all walk the earth with us, which many of us wish, and we could shake hands and dance together and have a cup of Java or whatever. And I think that day will come. But for right now, we get at these retreats a lot of contact in a lot of different ways, not just the lights in the sky, but there are beings on the ground energetically with us. Sometimes they're seen by people who have the psychic senses. And sometimes we get communication in so many other different ways, via electronics, doing weird things, and so on and so on. So every retreat is different, but the contact does come. And you can tell that's what excites me too, because I get to physically be with other people that can share that with me.
Well, I mean, I'm recalling right now on our C5 in Joshua Tree this past October, that incredible experience we all saw the last night, the very last night, those 3 blindingly bright flashes that came directly into our circle, not outside of it, directly within our circle of C5 meditators from so far up that we couldn't see what it could possibly be coming from. You know, it's just incredibly exciting to have those moments and to have any kind of contact. And so coming together to be with other people who operate the same way, right? Who think the same way, who can share experiences with you. It's a really special thing because there still is so much stigma in the community outside of the UFO, ET, C5 community. There still is a lot of stigma and a lot of, you know, people who maybe are not ready to think differently. And that's okay. Everyone comes to these moments in their own time, you know, but something that is so important is, I really, really feel the same as you, is the community aspect of it. I mean, here we are coming together right now, the three of us right now coming together to give audience to this experience. We're not here saying this happened to me, this happened to me. We're talking about this in a much bigger scale, and the work that you're doing is it's happening on a much bigger scale, and it's affecting so many people in such a powerful way. Well, I think we have some time left, and I was wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about, that you'd like to share, that you feel would be of value to our audience about the work you're doing, or even experiences you might have had that have somehow changed your life that you feel that other people can relate to. I know that you were talking earlier about the Star Friends, your Star Friends giving you the message that there was a turning point, a very powerful turning point in 2019. And you were very excited about that. I remember everyone getting really excited at that news. Maybe you can start by talking a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, because in 2010, when I first had the idea that all the CE5 people should be connected, I wondered whether it was worth all the effort. Excuse me. I may need to get a drink. Can we interrupt for a little bit?
Sure.
2010, when I realized that there were so many people around the world who were making contact, but not really connected to each other, I saw an opportunity to electronically, and we had the internet, of course, to bring people together. And I had the thought that we should be coming together as a community in our imaginations, like once a month, and present ourselves for interaction, even though many of us would never physically meet. And I knew that this would be a labor-intensive thing, because I had a full-time job. I'm a software engineer, and I was a consultant in the Silicon Valley. So I wondered, is it worth the effort to try to organize all these people? And I did have communication with my Star friends about that, and I asked them the question, would it be of use to any of you in your grander scheme, your grander plans of things that I know nothing about, for me to do this kind of organization, and to be a cheerleader, and to facilitate, and to get people going on a rhythmic basis making contact, because it is a lot of work. And they said, yes, please do it. We want you to create as many ET contact teams as possible, in as many places as possible, as quickly as possible. So that was very clear, those instructions. And that's when I formed the Global CE5 Initiative network, which became or is part of the ETLetsTalk community. Actually, the Global CE5 is the monthly practice. And people who are in my community know that for 10 years, every month they'll get emails from me saying, okay, this is the date for us coming together during these 24 hours as a community, and send me your reports if interesting things happen. And we do that month after month after month, again, for the last 10 years. And that has produced a lot of contact, videos, pictures, experiences for people. It has been a wonderful thing. But going back to 2010, when I contemplated this, and I was encouraged to create many ET contact teams, I said, well, what is the point? And they said, my Star friends said that as more humans give them permission to appear in more places, they will do that, because they were operating with the non-interference thing. They really wanted more permission. They wanted our buy-in, not just a one-way thing. Again, a partnership. And as we asked them to appear in more places, they would do that where even more humans would see them, and give them permission to appear in many more places where even more humans would see them. They called this a virtual, the word is not coming to me now, but it will, a virtuous circle. That was the word, or the phrase rather. They called this a virtuous circle as we cooperated that way. And I asked them, well, what's the end game for that? And they said, well, someday a tipping point will come where so many people around the world, so many humans, will have seen us and wanted to interact with us, that no government or no authority will ever again be able to cover up our existence. And that's the people's disclosure. That's what they were describing, is when so many people suddenly realize this is real, no matter what the person over here is telling me, move right along, nothing to see here. So many of them would be there that the cover-up would be over. And I was told that in 2019, doing a fast forward right now, that tipping point did occur. So we had two things happening in 2019. The tipping point where the cover-up is no longer possible because too many of us know now has occurred, and the tipping point of the non-interference policy being removed. These two things are a tremendous turning point, a fork in the road that we've reached, and successes that we've now had moving forward. And what's really exciting is that we have a larger audience, a larger community for this than any of us realizes, based on research done in 2015 concerning the attitudes of adults across the earth towards extraterrestrial life. I won't bore you with all the details, but it was the widest research, the most in-depth research of its kind that was done, asking questions about ETs. And the bottom line is that I extended some of the research, and I've discovered that 1.3 billion adults on Earth not only believe that ET civilizations exist, they're not just a microbe under a rock somewhere, but that we should be communicating with them. That has all mushroomed since the 6 decades that I've been on Earth, because that kind of number and that kind of openness to this topic, I never saw in the early 60s. But fast forward to now, because of movies like E.T., Star Trek, Close Encounters, etc., the public has opened up tremendously. And if our numbers are correct, based on this research I saw done by this Dutch firm, 1.3 billion people, maybe 1 out of 7 people, 1 out of 6 people on the planet, at least are open-minded about this. It doesn't mean that all of them are sitting in lawn chairs making contact like we do, but in potential, if they can be reached and told that we are being visited and that they can make their own contact, they would say, yeah, why not? Now, admittedly, half of those people are wondering where their next meal will come from tomorrow, because we have problems with hunger and famine on this earth. So I'm not being very naive about this. I'm just saying the potential is there, and it has grown tremendously. So 2019 was a turning point for us. The research I just cited shows that we have a huge global community that is now way more ready. So we've got work to do. Let's move forward and do that and reach more people.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
My wonderful assistant has told me we're almost out of time, so I want to ask you a final question, and we'll leave it at that. But just a little note on good news. Maybe I should do a good news story. My good news is that I have a wonderful host that's sort of come in and helped me out tremendously and bailed me out. And the idea that your reality. The reality that you perceive is determined by the frequency to which you're tuned in. And if you're around negative people, your frequency is going to go down. If you're around positive people, it's going to go up. So I appreciate that. But my final question to you is the sort of, because Sinead is a teacher, this is your 30-point final question. It's your last day on Earth, and you have to leave a message for the Earth. What do you want people to remember that Kosta's main message to them for future is?
Love is all there is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And give us maybe finally, what's the date of your next event? Because I hear Sinead is always talking about this event, and she's going, and the guides are going to get her there, and it's this wonderful place to be. So tell people, if they want to join up, where can they go, and what's the dates? And we'll end with that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, Grant. The next event is our Mount Shasta 6-day retreat, June 14 to June 19, Mount Shasta, California. People can go to ETLetsTalk.com/retreats, and they can register there and get some detailed information about what we do. It's a wonderful time, a great group getting together. Sinead will be there, as she has been with Joshua Tree in the past. And when you go to ETLetsTalk.com/retreats, there will be information and dates for the Bloomington, Indiana retreat that occurs in September, and the one in Joshua Tree, California in October. So it's all wrapped up there, and I invite people to come. It's very affordable, and it's a lot of fun.
And your website is?
ETLetsTalk.com.
Beautiful.
Free,
Thank you,
free membership.
Kosta. And thank you, Sinead, for your help in this. This is wonderful, and I think people will appreciate the wonderful message that you have. Thank you very much for spending time with us and sharing your message.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Major dittos on that. Major dittos. Kosta, thank you so much for your time, and Grant also for letting us put this on your channel. You know, that's so appreciated. So much gratitude.